You're listening to Faith, Stewardship, and Insurance, Protecting Texas Churches. The show that gives pastors and church leaders the clarity they need to protect their people, property, and ministry.
Welcome back to Faith, Stewardship, and Insurance, Protecting Texas Churches. I'm your host, Ron Wadley with Insurance for Texans. We help church leaders to protect their people and property with wisdom and clarity. Today's episode is focused on a topic that can catch a church off guard and cause confusion. We are going to explore ways to know whether or not your church has adequate water coverage. Ruth helps manage the finances for a church along the Red River. She's organized, careful, and very aware of how tight the church's budget is. What keeps her up at night is what it might cost the church if they suddenly had water damage. Not the dramatic kind caused by weather, the slow, sneaky kind, a pipe that bursts behind a wall, a toilet line that fails overnight, water that soaks into carpet, drywall, and equipment before anyone notices. Ruth's biggest fear wasn't just whether the church had coverage. It was whether the coverage they had would actually respond the way they expected when it mattered. Here's the good news first. Most Texas church property policies do cover sudden and accidental water damage. Things like a burst pipe, a failed water heater, or a plumbing line that breaks unexpectedly are usually covered events. That includes water damage to floors, walls, and the church's contents. Sound equipment, furniture, office electronics, and other ministry tools often fall under what insurers call business personal property. Frozen pipes are another common question. In many cases, those are covered too, assuming reasonable precautions were taken before the freeze. That's an important detail a lot of churches don't realize until after the fact. This is where Ruth's concern really came into focus. Not all water damage is treated the same. Roof leaks are a good example. If a storm damages the roof and water comes in as a result, that's often covered. But there's a gray area insurers call wind-driven rain. That's when wind pushes rain up under shingles without obvious storm damage. Some policies exclude that entirely. Slow leaks are another problem. Water that seeps over time behind walls or under foundations is often excluded unless the policy has specific endorsements. Churches don't find out about that gap until a claim is denied or limited. And then there's the big misunderstanding: flooding. Now let's discuss water damage versus flood damage. This distinction matters more than almost anything else. If water comes from inside the building, like plumbing or internal systems, that's usually considered water damage. If water comes from outside, rising groundwater, overflowing creeks, or heavy runoff, that's flood damage. Flood damage is not covered by standard church property insurance. It requires a separate flood policy. For churches near rivers, low-lying areas, or urban drainage systems, that gap can be devastating if it's ignored. That is why understanding the details of your church's policy is important. What Ruth learned, and what every church leader needs to understand, is that water coverage lives in the fine print. Endorsements, exclusions, and conditions all shape what actually gets paid. Some churches are adding water backup coverage. Others are addressing foundation leaks or installing water sensors to reduce risk. These steps don't just protect the building. They also make churches more attractive to insurers in a tough market. If you're not 100% sure how your church's water coverage works, now is the time to find out. Visit insurancefortexans.com and talk with one of our Texas-based church insurance specialists who can walk through your policy with you, line by line. And if you want a better framework for thinking through insurance decisions without stress or guesswork, get a copy of our book, The Promise of Certainty, at thepromiseofcertainty.com. I'm Ron Wadley, and this has been Faith Stewardship and Insurance, Protecting Texas Churches. Until next time, remember, taking the time to understand your church's insurance policy today can save you time and money down the road.
Thanks for listening to Faith, Stewardship, and Insurance. Until next time, remember, Insurance isn't just about policies. It's about safeguarding the mission God has called you to lead.